So for my ISU, I would be comparing The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Hamlet by William Shakespeare, and Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. So a quick summary of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde is that it's based in the 1890s in London, and it's about a 18-year-old boy named Dorian Gray who gets a portrait painted of himself, and looking at its beauty and its youth, wishes that the picture would age instead of himself. Unknowingly to him, that wish comes true, and the book follows Dorian as he becomes more corrupt, as his soul becomes corrupt, and his picture itself reflects that corruptness of his soul, and his physical body does not age and remains the same. So the overlapping themes is corruption and insanity, so it's pretty much the conversion of one's soul or mind towards evil or sinful and immoral nature. So for The Picture of Dorian Gray, my supporting quotes are, "They say that you corrupt everyone with whom you become intimate, and that it is quite sufficient for you to enter a house for shame of some kind to follow after." And the second one is, "An exclamation of horror broke from the painter's lips as he saw in the dim light the hideous face of the canvas grinning at him. There was something in its expression that filled him with disgust and loathing. Good heavens, it was Dorian Gray's own face that he was looking at." So the first quote pretty much depicts how Dorian himself becomes so corrupt that the people around him also end up in bad situations. So he has a bad influence on other people. And then the second quote is depicting how the picture itself reflects the evil and the corruptness of his soul, that it just becomes even more hideous and evil looking as Dorian's soul becomes more evil itself. So for Hamlet, my two supporting quotes are, "To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and, by opposing, end them, to die, to sleep." And the second one is, "Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." So the first one is his famous soliloquy, and this is where he's kind of slowly starting to lose his mind. He's slowly giving into insanity as he's debating whether or not to commit suicide. So it's kind of the beginning of that corrupt and insanity that he later turns into. And then the second one is that tipping point for him where he completely gives in to his own lust for revenge on Claudius, and where he completely loses his mind, where he's only focused on killing Claudius. And then for Angels and Demons, my supporting quotes are, "Upon this rock I will build this church." Then he raised his hands to the sky and laughed out loud. "Grazie, Deo, grazie," the man said had clearly gone mad. And the second one is, "And so you had Leonardo Vetra killed. For the church, for all mankind, the madness of it. Man is not ready to hold the power of creation in his hands. God in a test tube, a droplet of liquid that can vaporize an entire city. He had to be stopped." So the first one is kind of just depicting how the Camerlengo went crazy in that moment where he believed that God was speaking to him, so it kind of reflects how his mind isn't totally sane, and he isn't in his right mind. And then the second one is when he admits to being behind the whole plot of the book, the sealing of the antimatter, the threat on the church, and Leonardo's death as well. So that's where we learn how he had corrupted himself in his own belief that he needed to protect the church and bring more people to the church through this fear, and he didn't care what he had to do, who he had to kill in order to do that. And here's my works cited page. And that's the end. Thanks for listening.